Hello, in today's episode of the Maven's Private Diaries, we are talking about erotica. And I have a special guest, an Australian author who's diving deep into writing about sex and disability.
Thank you for joining the Maven's Private Diaries, brought to you by thespicyboudoir.com, purveyor of high-quality, premium body-safe pleasure products for the over 50s and people living with a disability.
Hi, my name is Susan, and these are my private diaries. Occasionally I will host a guest speaker or read out someone else's diary, with their permission, of course.
Content warning.
This podcast contains the occasional swear word, lewd comments and discussion around sex.
Warning, warning.
You will no doubt hear the emotional pangs of a woman who has lost her libido to menopause. Listen at your own risk and enjoy. Hey everybody, I am so fortunate today. I'm speaking to an author, and not just your random author. I'm speaking to Sandra Carmel, who writes erotica. Hello, Sandra.
Hello, it's so good to meet you, Susan, and thank you for this opportunity.
You're more than welcome. I was particularly interested in seeing the topic and some of the characters that you've chosen to write about. But before we talk about that, could you just tell everybody a little bit about yourself, who you are, and what your day job is? Because I find this paradox, I guess, is really interesting, and what motivates you to write erotica?
Yep, sure. My day job is as an occupational therapist in the community setting. So predominantly I deal with clients who are 65 plus age group, but some younger people with a disability as well. So some younger people, like adults with a disability. And I suppose over my journey, I've just seen the importance of, I've seen where I suppose the systems let people down, and how often sexual interests are not, and sexuality and sexual health concerns are not raised enough. So I've seen that in a health setting, where in some instances it's really well followed through, but in many instances it's an area where you're almost going to talk about people's continence before you talk about their sexuality and sexual health, right? Which is really concerning to me, because I believe that everyone has the right to pleasure and enjoyment, sexual health and well-being, and options for their situation. So that's what's, I suppose, been an underlying sort of driver, and that interests me in my professional sort of day job life. And then that's, I suppose, followed through into my writing as well. And so I have an interest when I do write to write about, it's not always characters with a disability, but in recent times I've wanted to highlight that characters with a disability also have sexual needs and wants and desires. And it's not just about, because a lot of the time they're sort of, in my experience in my day job, a lot of the time people look at them like, they just need to look at their everyday needs, but they don't actually focus on their sexual health and well-being. So I wanted to highlight that, and part of that in my writing is highlighting that characters and people with a disability still have the same needs and desires that able-bodied people have. It's not any different. Just because you've got a disability, it doesn't mean you're not interested. So yeah, I guess that's the underlying driver from my experience over that time. Yeah,
That's fantastic, and that's very much in line with what my mission is here through the Spicy Boudoir and the Maven's Private Diaries, is to help make everyone understand that no matter your age or your physicality, you are a sexual being and you do have a right to pleasure. And unfortunately, what we see constantly in entertainment, such as movies, TV shows, and advertising, you rarely ever see someone with a disability playing the role of a sexual person. And that really drives me nuts. Same with older people.
I was just going to say, older people's the same thing. They never show that. They never encourage that or write about it. Or exactly right. Totally agree with you.
Well, wonderful that you're taking your thoughts and experience from your day job and helping that to, I guess, forge a dimension in erotica that embraces reality of the human experience. So, do you have a particular favourite story that you've written? I know
Oh,
I do.
I know you do. I think,
I could relate.
yeah, I
I
suppose,
could
like,
really relate to the cyber meeting your cyber hookup in face to face. It's happened to me.
yeah, exactly. And I think that that's a thing these days, isn't it? I think it's more and more often the way, and particularly, I suppose, even with the COVID environment, it's probably even more of a way to meet people these days than ever before. But and just with the technology, it just gives you so many more options, doesn't it? So,
Mm.
um, yeah. So, Game for Intimacy is a novella length story that I've written about a young man who is in a wheelchair with spina bifida, and just he's a gamer, and how he meets his partner, I suppose. And so it's part of a trilogy that I've written, and they're all standalone novellas, but they're interlinked by characters that they have in common. So in each different novella, there'll be mention of a character that's in one of the other novellas. So they're interlinked in
Okay.
that way, but they're standalone in terms of the story will end with a particular, it will not end on a cliffhanger, I'll put it that way. It'll end with a proper ending. So it's not going to
Okay.
like stress, you're not going to get to the end and go, oh no, I'll have to read the next one. It's actually standalone, but they're interlinked in terms of characters know each other, and that's how the
Yeah.
series is linked.
Oh, that's very clever. I love crossovers. I'm a big Star Trek fan, and I love it when Star Trek characters from different episodes or different, like, was it Deep Space Nine and Next Gen and whatever, can cross over into that, or Simpsons versus not Futurama. It's one of the cartoon ones. Might have
Yeah.
been American Guy, American Dad.
Oh yes,
Anyway,
yeah.
yeah. And have you got any there that you can share with our audience?
Yeah.
Give us a bit of
So,
a
if you
preview.
like, I can give you, if you're happy, I'll give you a little overview of the blurb, and then I can go into an actual little excerpt from the little novella itself. If you're happy to do that, I can do that,
Yes.
or go
Just
straight into the excerpt if you like.
well,
For you,
I
whatever
think
you
our
like.
listeners might like to hear your writing that
Yep,
will
go straight into the
inspire
excerpt. Sure,
a
I can do
physical
that.
response.
Yeah, sure, I can do that straight away.
And to everyone
Let me.
listening, it's quite okay to touch yourself while Sandra reads this.
Of course it is, absolutely, and I would hope that you do. So, Game for Intimacy is the name of the novella, and it's the second book in the trilogy. So, here's the excerpt. Plates of finger food made the rounds, but his nervy, knotted up stomach stopped him from forcing anything down in case it catapulted all the way back up. Instead, he had a drink to take the edge off his anxiety. A gin man all the way, he sipped on a martini, feeling very James Bond, and chatted to his mates about their plans for day two. And Beth, impossible not to mention her after their close encounter earlier. She always looks so gorgeous in her pictures, but today, Beth in person is just breathtaking. Brody shouted over the loud music and glanced up into Cam's wide, suddenly freaked out eyes. Thank you.
Oh, it's
Fuck.
Sandra's pussy
Beth's voice.
making an
It
entrance.
is Sandra's pussy, one of them. Merlin. Merlin. Say hello, Merlin.
For those not actually watching this on YouTube or video, Sandra's cat actually just walked across camera. It was
He
black.
can't help himself. He's such a show off. Anyway, he's probably going to come back again now. Anyway,
Here we go.
so
That's all right.
here we go. Come on, Merlin. Beth's voice, unmistakable, even amongst the din of conversation and tacky 80s dance tunes. Beth, he mouthed to his mate, just to double check. Cam smiled, his nod almost imperceptible. Ben just laughed. Brody clacked his jaw together and tried to steady his suddenly erratic breathing. He checked his watch. Shit. 8 already, the time he'd organised to meet his online gamer friend. Beth had to choose right then to come by. What a fucking disaster. He didn't want to hurry her off, but he couldn't miss the opportunity to meet Be True either. Their pre-planned catch-up had pushed him to fly to Melbourne in the first place. He swiveled in his wheelchair to face his infatuation. Whoa. His mouth went so dry he could hardly pry his tongue off the roof of it to speak. Hi. Her warm, brilliant smile nearly knocked him right out of his chair. Backlit with the vibrant amber lights lining the entryway, she looked like an angel with a golden, glowing aura. Hi. She stood there all soft and stunning and surreal, like a waking dream, a deep, soul-stirring spiritual experience. It seems you've got a bit of an unfair advantage. You know my name, but I don't know yours. Brody. God, it was like the cord connecting his thoughts to his speech had been cut. He sounded like a total inarticulate moron, a fanboy. The exact reason why she'd avoid attending these things. He fumbled for words, her mind probably second-guessing her decision to come over. Brody, she said, his name never sounding so bloody good. Maybe you can help me. This is table 69, right? I'm trying to find a gamer called Be Brave. Be True? His voice croaked with no fucking way. Beth couldn't possibly be his online gamer mate, could she? The one he'd had virtual sex with less than a week ago. Scorching heat rushed over his skin, like he'd been wrapped in an electric blanket on high. He knew she liked to play, but what were the odds? Yes, her broad smile almost disappeared right off the sides of her face, and tugging up the corners of her eyes, like the outcome made her super. You'll be brave, aren't you? Beth stared at him, her hopeful expression suggesting she really wanted it to be true, which made no sense. Women like her didn't go for guys like him. Maybe in romance novels, but not in the real world. Then again, she was probably just being friendly, making sure she kept up a certain professional image to match her brand, her reputation. He nodded, still not quite believing the view right in front of him. Who stood right in front of him? Cam clamped his hand on Brody's shoulder. Nice one, Broads. You hit the lady jackpot. Ben slapped his hand down on the table. I'm so fucking jealous. Beth laughed, and it was the sweetest sound. Brody shook his head in warning at his friends. Guys, please. It's okay. Her large chocolate brown eyes melted his with their intensity. So glad it's you. You are? Yeah, you look like a sweetheart. Great, totally friend-zoned. Typical. The usual. Able-bodied people didn't seem to get that the disabled population had sexual needs and desires too. Looks can be deceiving. I hope not. Her tone turned serious, like she'd been stuffed around by some dick in the past, and now she used that hurt, wary, vulnerable lens to view others. There's a real genuineness, a real sincerity to you that my instinct says is true. I hope I'm right. It's very important to me. No pressure or anything. Me too. Time to lighten things up a bit, especially while they still had an audience. Can I get you a drink? No, let me. It's the least I can do to thank you for coming all this way to meet up with me. She glanced over at his mates. What would you guys like? They looked at each other and carried out their trademark silent conversation. Seconds later, Ben said, beer for us, thanks. Beth focused her full attention, like a dual spotlight, back on Brody. He swallowed the crushing boulder of nerves, gathering sighs and blocking his throat. I'll have a gin and tonic, please. You're kidding. That's my favourite drink. She said it like she'd ticked another sign off the we were meant to meet list. Or maybe his interpretation had gotten skewed by wishful thinking. Mine too. Beth grabbed a passing waiter's attention and placed the order. Ben poked Brody in the ribs. Aren't you going to offer the lady a seat, man? He would, except there were no spare chairs at their table, or those surrounding them. I'd offer you mine, but he shrugged. She glanced at his scrawny thighs, strategically obscured under his jeans, and back up until their gazes reconnected. His face had to be the colour of a fire truck, and his cock, well, he'd almost had a hard-on from the moment he saw her that morning. Hopefully the bulge was buried in the shadows. Beth bit down on her plump bottom lip, leaving little white indents of indecision. She went to speak, stopped. Went to speak, stopped, and took a breath. Is your lap taken? There you go.
Is that a Glock in your pocket? Or are you just happy to see me?
Exactly.
That's a line out of Free Guy. Wow. Is that actually based off anybody's real life?
Not specifically. You know, it's not specific of anyone's real life, but you know, I've picked up stuff because my husband's in a wheelchair because of a spinal injury, and so like meeting and chatting with his friends and just hearing sort of bits and pieces of stories and their history and past and things. And so, you know, I've heard bits and pieces, nothing specifically that's that, but I guess I've extrapolated based on some real life experiences and just the way, you know, people talk and just pick up some sort of things, and then just go wild with my imagination.
Is there a next bit where they're being intimate?
There is
because I'm such a perv and I just want to know.
No, you know what? No, there's totally a bit where they're intimate, but I don't have it in front of me. Sorry. That would have been a good thing, right? To have in front of me.
I think, Sandra, what we might do is you can send that to me and I'll read a bit of it out, and we can stitch it in at the end of this recording if you like.
That would be awesome. Okay, yes, I will do that. I'll send you. Yep, absolutely.
Yep. So conversations around sexuality and disability. Look, while I live with certain factors that put some restrictions or some accommodations around my life, like I live with chronic pain and I use a walking stick every now and then. I live with anxiety and depression. When I was dating, it was always, do you tell someone about, you know, I live with anxiety and depression? Do I tell anybody about my knees? So I guess when you're living with a very upfront disability, such as using a wheelchair, it can just add that different element to conversations. And I'm just wondering what you could share with our readers about either personal experiences or conversations that you've had with people who've been in that situation and feeling that they're not worthy of being dated or having sex with because of their disability.
And I think that that's an ongoing difficulty. And as you said, in some instances, people's disability is more obvious, physically obvious than others. And so I suppose there is a scene in that story where he walks her back to her apartment, and he doesn't know how he's going to instigate a kiss with her because he's in a chair and he essentially has to like pull her down. You know, like what's he going to do? Like how's he going to instigate a kiss? Because he has to almost ask for it or hope that she instigates it, because he can't just subtly do it. Whereas if you were like both able, you could kind of like just lean in and do that quite easily. And he has this anxiety around, what do I do now? Like, do I kiss her? Does she even want me to kiss her? Like, I don't, like, I can't, like, it's hard to know what to do, and you have to be more overt. And I think that it adds sort of a more confronting, it's a more confronting thing to have to deal with than if you're not in that situation, I suppose. And the thing, and like people in certain, and obviously people in chairs have varying levels of ability, but there's always that concern that, you know, like you said, you know, how much upfront do you say, you know, I can, you know, we can do stuff to this level, but positions might be limited, or I might not be able to actually come, or, you know, depending on your like level of disability, it's like, how early do you raise these things, you know, or do you like just, you know, get involved and then like hope that you've got a connection and go from there, or do you just, you know, or are you just interested in something more short term? It just depends what you're after, obviously. But like you said, you know, it's like an ongoing concern around when do you raise these things that could be, if it's a long-term relationship, the other person will need to know, you know, where the positives are and where there might be some limitations you need to work around, I suppose. But yeah, that is a definite concern, and something that's always, I think, on people's minds about when do you raise that. At what point?
Yeah, I'll just my partner showed me a meme. I don't know if it's going around socials at the moment. It's this younger woman on Tinder who's an amputee, and
Yep.
her Tinder profile picture is her. I love the humour here. Her shoulder has
Yep.
a baby shark attached, okay,
Yep.
where her arm is missing.
Right.
So
Yep.
I'm
Yep.
sorry, I don't know if she's an amputee or if she was born that way, but I
But
just
yep.
thought, fuck, what a statement to make, to
Oh,
have
exactly.
the shark, I lost my arm to shark
Exactly.
bite, or just to make a joke out of it. I thought
Yep.
being upfront and honest will get you big places, I reckon.
I think so too, and I think that's one thing that I have found in particularly working around sort of people with disability and in the spinal cord injury area in my personal life, that I do find that I find that it's actually that the people have the injuries, they're incredibly strong-minded and very admirable in their in the way that they approach things, and as you
Mm,
said, that I don't know if it's just in their personality already or whether that's also been reinforced because of their injury, but they're very overt and straight up, and there's no shamefulness there. It's just, and there shouldn't be, but as in like they're
mm,
not. They're just like, this is how it is, and they're just really quite. They're incredibly confident, and I think it's really impressive. Like I
mm,
don't even come as confident as some of the people I've met, to be honest. And I don't have a physical disability, but certainly have anxiety. That's my issue. But in terms of physical disability, like it's not like I have anything like that. That's an obvious thing, and they're just so um, inspiring, I suppose, incredibly
mm,
inspiring, because they're just who they are, and not there's no issue with it, and they shouldn't be
mm,
either.
mm,
Yeah,
mm.
it's
That's
really
right.
cool. Like it's great.
So I was just going back to Brody when you were
Yeah,
talking about that first kiss moment where if two people are at sort of similar heights, it can sort of happen very quickly and very organically. And
exactly.
he may have to say something, even if he's not feeling confident and sexy, to come
Yeah,
out and say, "Gee, I just want to fucking kiss you at the moment," and pretend like
yeah,
I've done a lot of. I don't like saying pretending. It's like just pushing through my fear, because
yep,
under all of this glam and voice and hair, I'm shy. I'm a shy
yep,
person.
yep,
And I think I said to you before, I've just got my shit together a little bit,
yep.
and being able
A
to
lot.
work out how to push past it.
Yep.
It's not being frightened of regret and rejection,
So
because, and
important.
this is the lesson I try to impart on people, rejection, okay, yes, it fucking hurts, but it's a fleeting moment, okay? You will get
Yep,
over rejection.
yep.
Regret, no, it sticks with you until the day you die, unless you can
Agreed.
fix that regret. So just
Yep,
be brave, okay?
yep,
Step up and speak up. So, but I'll just go back to, Brody, and he walked her back to her place.
yep,
It occurred to me then, say if they did kiss and they were like, oh, I'd like to make our virtual experience to a hands-on experience,
yep,
it would be absolutely terribly tragic, but also realistic, because this is the world that we're in, if he could then not actually gain access into her unit where she lived,
yep,
because there was no ramp at the entrance, or there was only stairs to get up to the
yep,
third floor and no lift.
yep,
These
yep.
are the
Real.
realities and the
That's right.
struggle which the able world imposes on everybody. So,
Exactly.
is there something like that that's touched on in your work?
In that particular story, not particularly, because he's set up and where they meet is they're at a conference, so they're in a hotel. So it's set up, but it is touched on in terms of he's had to get a disability access room for his to meet his own needs, whereas she doesn't necessarily have to have that. So that is
Mm,
touched a bit. In the first novella, Last Hope, it's touched on quite a bit because the guy who's affected needs to actually move to a new home because his old home has stairs and he can't manage it anymore. So it is touched on in that particular first novella, Last Hope, that he does need to relocate because of his situation. So it is touched on there. So there is like aspects throughout the series where it is touched on, but yeah.
Yeah. And are you planning on writing more after this trilogy?
Yes, I am. So at the moment I'm writing a BDSM themed series, but these will be full-length novels. And the first one that I've written actually has another wheelchair-bound character after an accident, and he's a dom. So it's around like how he gets around that and how he still can have his feel confident with his dom persona, and his struggles around connecting with a woman in something that's more than a superficial connection. So there's sort of like some struggles around whether he believes he can actually sustain a long-term relationship or not. So that's kind of the general gist of that one. But and it's obviously talk around different sex toys and positioning equipment and things like that can sort of help with.
In terms of sex toys, I can definitely help you out there if you need any research material.
Exactly, I know.
The Spicy Boudoir is always here to help everybody.
That's right, exactly.
So tell me, how can people find your trilogy?
Yep. Okay, so it's available on Amazon. If you look up Sandra Carmel, it will come up. So it's called Intertwined Love Trilogy. There's Last Hope, Game for Intimacy, Dance of Love. They're the three novellas that are part of that. But ultimately, if you put Sandra Carmel into Amazon, you'll find it. It's also available on Apple and various ebook retailers. So if you just pop my name in there, should come up. I'm on Goodreads, BookBub, as at Amazon, Facebook, Instagram. So you can find me.
And we'll make sure. And we'll make sure that your links are available through this podcast and our channels as well. Well, Sandra, I've absolutely loved speaking with you today. I'm so pleased to know you. Sandra's actually a member of our private The Spicy Boudoir Collective group on Facebook.
Yep.
And we've also sort of been passing shoulders in the world of occupational therapy. Because believe it or not, I think occupational therapists are leading the way in the health profession in recognising that people of all ages, but particularly older people and people living with disability, are sexual beings, and that right to pleasure should be addressed in all aspects of planning for someone's care and support. And I applaud you all for standing up and highlighting that particular issue here in Australia and overseas. So Sandra Carmel, thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. It's great. Thanks for that.
Thank you for listening to the Maven's Private Diaries. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and took away some wisdom, chuckles, or inspiration. Let me know your thoughts, either positive or constructive. You could leave me a review on your listening app. So this podcast is the property of Susan Jarvis, me, the Maven. For inquiries, please visit www.thespicyboudoir.com.